All right, everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Gridiron Uncensored podcast. We are rolling along with our season previews. Still in the Big 12. This is the last episode, and then we get on to the SEC, and then we're done with them. We're moving into projections, all that other good stuff that's coming along very soon before kickoff. So make sure you stay tuned for that. Yeah, I apologize for my voice. It's jacked up. It's been like this for a month. Deal with it. All right, I'm trying to. Okay, I'm living with this problem. But either way, let's get into these teams. We got TCU to start, and they had a rough season last year. But hey, they returned some people. They got 67% returning production. Last year, they had the 11th ranked offense and the 100th defense. So they're trying to get that defense going, trying to get something new started. Trevor, I know you got stuff on the changes that they made, and then we'll get into the actual preview of this team and what they got.
Yeah, and you're absolutely right. It was a disappointing year last year for the defense, the offense, really the entire TCU team. And it started out week one, unfortunately for them. That's all there is to it. There's no real bones about it. But, Sonny Dykes is, he's, if nothing else, he's going to make changes when he thinks changes are needed. And that's what he did. He got rid of, he sent Joe Gillespie packing and brought in Andy Avalos to be the new defensive coordinator. Some may recognize him out in the West Coast, at least. Was most recently the head coach at Boise State, where he went 22-14 before getting dismissed midseason this past year. So, yeah, they got him. And then they're also bringing in one other guy, Ken Wilson, linebackers coach, was also a former head coach. He spent the previous 2 seasons at Nevada, going wonderful 4-20. So
hell yeah, 420.
There it is. 420. Let's go. Anyway, those are the 2 main additions to the TCU coaching staff. Obviously any change can be good, could be good change, but it also could be very bad change as well. We'll see. We'll see how the players adjust to it and see what they kind of bring to the table as far as aggressiveness, because TCU's defense is lacking in that. Feel like what's the word I'm looking for? I guess aggressive is a good word. Just the lack of aggression from the TCU side of the ball, defensive side of the ball for TCU. Excuse me.
Yeah, you saw a lot of it in 2022, but the step back in 23, and that's what they're trying to find. And it seems like they're moving to the new system with a new defensive coordinator, probably going 4 down as opposed to that 3-3-5 that they were cruising with.
Yeah.
So I'm curious to see what they do with that. But I don't mind the change when things are going bad. Got to find something. Somebody's got to do something, and Sonny Dykes knows that. So, Blake, what do you think about this team? They've hit in the portal pretty well. A lot of changes. What are your thoughts?
Well, they're returning 2 of their top 3 receivers, and coming along with Avalos, they've got Eric McAllister from Boise State. He's a big guy. He'll be a good target to have. The explosiveness of their offense isn't really in question. To me, it's the defensive side of the ball. I don't think they'll have any issues moving the football. But the more I look into the Big 12, the more I agree with Trevor and you that it's going to be like the Pac-12 last year. There's so many teams. They just have a lot of talent, a lot of explosiveness, and the defense seems to be in question with just about every team except one that we're going to talk about later.
Yeah, I agree. This conference I think is going to be a lot of fun. It's very deep. These teams are going to be able to score. But like you mentioned, defense, and like you said with TCU, there's a change there. So we need to see the vets step up. I know they had some losses, and we'll talk about that in the portal real quick. Key losses that I wrote down. You got Williams leaving, Wren, Wilcox, McMillan, Deal. The guys like that, those all hurt to lose. But when you look at numbers, 24 coming in, you lost 19, and some of the guys that you're losing, they might be depth guys. You do lose Chandler Morris, but that's not really a big issue because they like who they've got in Josh Hoover. the fan base is really rallied around him. And then you mentioned, guys coming in from the portal, wide receiver. They also got Lamarion James coming in, Austin Jordan, Orr and McAllister, guys like these that are going to step in, and they expect them to work right away. Guys from all over the Power 5 or Power 4 now, guys from Florida State, Alabama. You got guys from Houston, Texas, all over the place. So I think they did a really solid job on the portal class. It was 24th overall in the nation. And you just want to see these guys step up, especially on defense. Let's get the vets in there and show these guys around and get back to what TCU, was doing in 2022 and really being suffocating. Trev, what do you think? You like this portal class?
Yeah, I mean, I like the portal class. I mean, I feel like they did exactly what they should have done in the portal. Like most of them, it just filled needs where they needed to fill needs, and that's I think they accomplished that pretty decently. I'm not. I mean, they have a few good pieces coming off the recruiting class, but they did only get the 37th best recruiting class. I would say that that's probably light for what TCU probably expects for their recruiting class. I feel like they expect to be in a top 25 recruiting class, but like everything, the transfer portal is kind of changing the way we look at the transfer portal in general, or the whole recruiting class rankings in general. I feel like are not as heavily scrutinized. So, but with that being said, they do have a couple top 200, top 200 players. Excuse me, one wide receiver coming out of Texas, Kyle Baker, a 6'2", 170, 132nd in the nation, 25th best wide receiver in the country, and 22nd out of the state of Texas, which is, I think, a good pickup for them as just building. And I'm of the same mindset as most people, is that building through the recruiting of high school athletes is the paramount to building a successful program and having longevity, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree. I feel like that's something you have to do. And obviously a down year can affect, how your total class is, but I still feel like it's good enough that people see, okay, look, it was a down year. Things happen. We were expecting a drop off. Wasn't expecting it to be as severe as it was, but hey, look, we're making changes. Let's get back on track. And again, you're doing that in the portal, and there's guys that are buying into the system. Braylon James coming in from Notre Dame, Strickland from Texas A&M. Those are things you want to see. So really, Blake mentioned, I don't think there's going to be an issue too much with the offense. They've got players. Josh Hoover, like I said, he just kind of has to get that interception issue down. But he came on late also. And his defense is a question. How are they going to adjust to this new system? And will the players coming in really step up and pair with these vets that were on the team, the guys that got rotation last season? That's what we want to see. Blake, anything else, guys, before we move on, talk about schedule? I think
let's get into that schedule.
Team. All right, yeah, let's talk it, because I do think this is going to be a solid team. They've got good pieces at wide receiver, running back. They're happy with, but again, let's see how the defense does when you go up. And you look at the schedule. The first two games, I don't think should be an issue. Stanford, we talked about them earlier in our previews. They're still not going to be good, in my opinion. They're got things going for them. It's not like what we used to know Stanford as. And then LIU. I don't even know. But then it starts at UCF, SMU.
I was hoping you knew, because I didn't know.
So I'm in my mode of making these videos, and I get kind of squirrely. So either way, Blake, you guys want to talk about the schedule? I need a drink.
Yeah.
It's only tea tonight, boys.
Man, I'll tell you what, Blake. I don't know about you, but that October into early November, I don't know, man. Like Kansas, Houston, and then Utah right in a row. I feel like to start after coming out of what I would say is semi-light. UCF could be a problem. SMU in Dallas. I mean, I would necessarily consider that a tough game for TCU in this particular instance because it's essentially a home game where their fans would have the ability to travel to Dallas easily. So I mean, they start out in California. Don't get me wrong, but then they, Texas, and then Dallas, Texas. So I mean, it's nice to have a 3-game stretch of being at home as well. Blake, what do you think about this, man? Because I think, I mean, assuming that their roster kind of works out and their defense plays to a better caliber, it's a I feel like a 4-loss schedule maybe, and then that's maybe it.
Avoiding Kansas State is pretty good for them.
Yeah.
And then they get, like, I look at it as a 2-2 thing. They get UCF at home and they get Oklahoma State at home, but they're on the road at Utah. They're on the road at Kansas. And I'm still on the fence with how I feel about Kansas. The SMU game, I'm kind of like you. I think it's a winnable game, but that's Sonny Dykes came from SMU. They may want to take him down. You don't never know with teams like that.
It's a rivalry game too, boys.
Yeah.
I mean, emotions will be running high.
Yeah, and I actually like the team SMU has coming into this game, but I like what TCU's doing too. So, I mean, they've got a lot of toss-ups, just like the rest of the Big 12, like we've said, for pretty much every team we've talked about. Just about every game is a toss-up.
And I feel like Sonny Dykes is just going to have this team working their tail off to not repeat from the last season. I just feel like that they're going to come out of the gates hungrier than what they were. I feel for some reason I felt like when they went into that Colorado game, it was still like a hangover over the playoff game from the previous season or something. It was a strange game, and then it was just downhill from there.
Sonny Dykes also said the reason he brought in Andy Avalos was for a more aggressive defense. And I don't know much about him, but apparently he's an aggressive, defensive-minded guy. Mm-hmm. So, everybody's thinking the same thing. They've got to be more aggressive on defense.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you can see when a team, starts to falter a little bit, you're like, okay, this is really where we need to push it. TCU fans, let us know in the comments of YouTube what do you think about the change in the D coordinator? But going back to the schedule real quick, they have an over-under of 7.5 is the last I saw. I think that's manageable. I think they could definitely get there. But you can't let these teams trip you up. You got to win against SMU. It's just down the road in Dallas. Obviously DFW is huge metroplex, just down the road. But trust me, they would rather stay in Fort Worth. And then you go Utah. You got Baylor's got a revamped offense. All these teams are going to be scoring. You got to make stops on defense. So let's see if TCU can do that this season. But I do like what they have, boys. Anything else before we move on? All right, let's jump on Texas Tech, next team in the Big 12 that we were talking about. And if you have not seen it, they just released some awesome uniforms and ode to their throwbacks. But they look beautiful. So I definitely love what Texas Tech's doing. But let's talk about 2023 because it didn't go well from the jump. You lose to Wyoming in a tough way at Wyoming. You lose to Oregon again in a tough way. Tough loss to West Virginia. You got beat up by Kansas State, beat up by BYU, and then you got smashed by Texas. So let's see what Texas Tech can do in 2024. They're really looking for something to spark them. Trevor, were there any changes, anything that they've done?
Nothing major. They returned both their coordinators that they've had for 2 to 3 previous seasons. So there's not going to be much changes in the coaching staff realm on my end. There may be an analyst, a position coach here or there, but for the most part, the core of the defensive and offensive side of the balls are staying intact for the time being.
All right, cool. So what you want to see from them is, obviously what they do in the portal. What are you going to do to revamp this team? Yeah, you got 7 last year. Let's see what we can do on this season. And the portal, you go in, you got 23 left. They had the 36th overall class. And it's really not I don't think it's horrible. It's nothing like a world beater class, but there's some solid guys that come in. Blake, before we get into that, do you have anything that you've noticed about this team going into 2024 that sticks out to you?
Yeah, I really like them, and I'll say more when we get to the schedule, and because that's a lot of the reasons I like them. But they got Taj Brooks coming back, Baron Morton. They've got to have an offensive line that can protect the quarterback. You know, they had a lot of success running the football with Taj Brooks, but they've got the quarterback's got to have some protection, and the turnovers has got to change. 18 interceptions last season. That is that's bad.
Yeah.
And I want to say, like, I think 13 of those come in like the first 6 weeks of the season or first 7 weeks of the season, something like that. So I mean that's not good. You gotta flip that, and the defense has got to get a pass rush going. You were talking about the transfer portal. I know it ranks at 36, but I've been reading stuff from different people talking about, just because it's not rated high, some of the key players that they have coming in are I'm not arguing this. Other people are arguing this, that it's one of the top rated portal classes for what they need as far as that team goes. I don't know much about the players that they've got coming in, but a lot of people in the Texas Tech boards I was reading are really high on some of the secondary players coming in. So that'd be a good addition for them, but they've got to produce the pass rush and they got to create some turnovers.
Well, let's start the portal real quick, because that's a great point. Is, they love the class that they brought in, especially the O-line class. You mentioned that they need help there, and that's what they really love. So let me mention 36 overall class. Key guys in, you got Porcher, Kelly, Conyers, Douglas, Davion Carter, and Scurry, I believe is how it's said. But you're looking at a bunch of offensive linemen in Scurry, and then Carter. You're getting dudes like Douglas coming in from Florida that'll help out on the wide receiver core. These are things that you want to see. Llewellyn coming in as a tight end from OU. And then we mentioned Conyers, again, tight end coming in from Arizona State. We mentioned him as one of their significant losses. Don't forget also Josh Kelly coming in from Washington State, who was a big help, one of the only pieces that really helped out Cam Ward. So I definitely like what they're doing there. And you see that they're hitting the points that they need, like you mentioned. Trev, you got anything on the portal or recruiting?
Yeah, I was just kind of looking at all the recruits, and I was giggling a little bit because there's literally only one recruit in this entire recruiting class that's from outside of the state of Texas. And I don't know about you guys, but I find that kind of rare for a bigger time program to stick to their state. I know Texas is huge and has a lot of great players in it, but to have an entire recruiting class minus one, I think one or two players, scratch that, just one player. There's only one player, and he's out of the state of California. But that being said, you mentioned the O-line, and I wanted to point that out real quick. They're bringing in really good O-line players. They also have a 4-star and a 3-star coming in. The 4-star is a top 200 player, top 20 offensive tackle in the nation at 6'7", 275. His name's Ellis Davis. He's coming out of the state of Texas. Like I said, I mean, that's just assume every player I talk about is coming out of the state of Texas. We're just going to go with that. They do have, let's see here. They have a top 20 in the nation edge rusher in Cheta Ofili. I apologize right now. I'm sorry. These names are destroying me today. I'm sorry. Anyway, he's 6'3", 215. He's got to put on some weight, but I think he could be a good one. But I think the crown jewel of this recruiting class, guys, and you guys may have heard the name already, but Micah Hudson, 5-star wide receiver out of Temple, Texas, 6 foot 190, top 25 player in the nation, 5th best wide receiver in the country, and ironically enough, the 4th best in the state of Texas. Go figure that one out.
Texas
But
got that talent, man.
Texas got that talent, but they also bring in the quarterback, Will Hammond, 6'1.5". Like I think you guys mentioned him already, but I'm not positive. But he's a top 15 quarterback in the country as far as the recruits go. So that is at the position. And so, you guys, I really do like the recruiting class. It's the 26th best recruiting class in the country. And
Yeah.
for a Texas Tech team that's only recruiting out of the state of Texas for the most part, I think that's a win. I think that's a solid recruiting class for a Texas Tech Red Raider team that definitely needs depth at almost every position.
Yeah, I like what they're doing, and they said, again, you gotta build through the recruiting. I love attacking your own state. I think that's a smart move. Still got to get go national, but if you can recruit Texas, you're usually going to be fine. Let's Blake. You mentioned the interception problem. Morton is somebody that they're really backing. Yeah. He had 8 last year. The other ones came in through Shug, and then the other guy, I can't remember his name at the moment. Sorry, but it doesn't matter because Morton's the main dude, and like I said, the fan base is behind him. And that's what you want to see, that support. So yeah, they like what they've got. And they said the portal was solid. And if you can run with the ball like they can, this is going to be a dangerous team. Last year, I thought that they were going to be more dangerous. They fell off. But this year, I still think they can be a danger team in the Big 12. And like I said, with that portal class and the O-line, I think this team is going to be somebody to watch for. Maybe not win the conference, but they can screw your season up real quick, and they're going to win some games.
Absolutely, and that kind of brings us right into what we were talking about next, and that's the scheduling. Yep. Because them being dangerous is one thing, but them being dangerous and getting all the way to the Big 12 championship could potentially be a real thing. I mean, their schedule lines up very nicely for them, especially with breaking in potentially some new players on the offense and whatnot. But I mean, they start their season off with Abilene Christian. That's a win. If it's not, we're in trouble. It's a problem. But I mean, they go at Washington State, which Washington State, I would say, you guys can disagree if you want, are a shell of themselves from what they were a year ago. And then North Texas comes in at that for the first 3 games. Now I would venture to say that they're going to be 3-0 coming out of that. I don't know. What do you guys think?
I see 2 games on their schedule that gives me fits. Well, could be 3, but the 2 that I see is Iowa State on the road and Oklahoma State on the road. I think those are the toughest games on their schedule, and they're both in November. Every other game prior to that is easily winnable for them, especially if they're able to get rolling and, get like some confidence in these guys. I really like them, and there is a chance they run the table.
So I'm curious. I'd say for Trevor's question, I think they go 3-0 in the start. I don't think Washington State's going to be a problem. I hate saying it, but they've lost so much after the realignment. And then honestly, even Arizona State, Cincinnati, those are teams that you should go out and beat.
Definitely agree with that. They definitely need to go into the Arizona game 5-0 if they want to have a chance.
Blake, I'm curious. You don't trust Arizona, do you, this season?
I like a lot of the players.
Yeah,
I'm still on the fence with them.
I feel you.
At this
there's
stage,
a lot of changes. I get it.
Yeah, but I mean, Noah Fafita went back, did he not?
Yeah, yep.
I mean, that alone is what worries me about them being a good team. But I'm just still, on the fence with everything because there's been other instances with good quarterbacks and good players. There's a coaching change, and the team's just not the same again. And I don't know what's going to happen with them. And some of it's just I like Texas Tech this year. I really think they've got the pieces.
They really
I like
burned me
that.
last year.
Yeah. Well, they burned Brendan really bad. So
Yeah, they did.
I had him in the top 5, I think, at the end of the season, and then I got burned on week 1, man.
Yeah.
So
When I look at the roster and I look at the schedule, they've got. I think it lines up well, and I think it's one of those moments where it's like it's got to happen because the pieces are there, the schedule's there. If not this year, when the schedules changes next year, and you are playing Utah, Kansas State, which are the toughest teams in the Big 12.
Even Kansas, like they avoid
Mm,
Kansas, and Kansas is a pretty loaded roster right now.
Right. So I mean, when you're looking at a schedule and your toughest games are Okie Light and Iowa State, I mean, you've got to do something with that.
That's gonna chap some asses too. But no, listen, I agree. And look, last year they had, this year they have 61% returning production. They have an over/under of 7.5, so Vegas likes what they can do. But last year they had 64th offense and 74th defense. Show me this year that your defense can step up. You got some players in the portal, but really you got to stop shooting yourself in the foot. The first 2 games you killed yourself. Show us what you got. Don't let Taj Brooks be the guy behind this new offensive line you got, and use these wide receivers that came in, that bought in. Let's see what this offense can do. I think it can take a next step with Morton at quarterback. How far they go, I don't know. We're going to get into predictions down the line. But again, just a preview of what the team looks like. And I think it's pretty solid. And the boys tend to agree. Let's, gentlemen, if you got nothing else, let's move on to Utah. We'll talk about what this team has. Obviously, a newcomer into the Big 12. A lot's changed, but this Utah team still has Whittingham. They're going to be a force. They're going to be strong on defense. You know what you're getting with him as coach. And last year, unfortunately, Cam Rising didn't play at all. We were waiting week after week. Maybe he'll come back. Never happened. But they still managed to get 8 wins, with horrible quarterback play. Really, they beat UCLA, who had a strong defense, beat Florida early, which we were like, oh, hold on. Maybe they can do this without him. Well, we just didn't know, Florida was, kind of not figuring it out just yet. But then you go and lose to Oregon, you lose to Washington, Arizona, and then Northwestern in the bowl game. So they have a lot to prove in 2024, but I think Cam Rising is going to fix a lot of issues. There are questions about how his leg's going to be. We'll talk about that later. Trev, anything that's changed on this 2024 team?
Not a ton of changes necessarily. However, this was announced, I think, yesterday, that the restructuring of the assistant coach, Morgan Scaley, who will now, in his contract, states he will be the succession to Kyle Whittingham. Read into that what you will. I think it's a 2-year thing for Whittingham. He's going to be gone in 2 years. Retirement, on to whatever's next. But I think this is a sign that Whittingham's going to be with the team for the first season through the transition from the Pac-12 to the Big 12. And I think he might stick around for one more season. This may be his last year. Honestly, if you put this in, there may be talks, like depending on how the year goes, they may just be like, he may just be like, okay, we won the Big 12 or something. Because they are, I would say that they are the prohibitive odds-on favorites to go and win the Big 12. But I don't know. It depends on who you talk to. For me, I think it's Whittingham out in a year if they do well and win the Big 12 and get to the playoff.
I'm interested to see what happens. Utah fans, let us know what you think about that contract. Obviously, it's different from the outside looking in, so we're curious. Let us know in the comments on YouTube, and we'll talk about it. But yeah, 2024. Look, they're one of the favorites, if not the main favorite. They have an over/under of 9.5. They returned 66% of their production. And again, that defense was really sound. That they had the 13th defense in the country, and that was with lackluster offense. All right, this isn't just like, okay, their offense was really good. They have a really good defense. No, they did this defensively without production on the offense. They had the 92nd offense last year. So this is what you want to see from them is take what's returning, plug in some guys from the portal, and let's get this thing rolling. and we could go in and win the Big 12 in our first year. Blake, what are you seeing before we talk portal and whatever else? What do you think about this team?
Well, just like most people that they're my favorite to win the Big 12, but I do have an asterisk next to it, and I said it a lot last year. A lot of it's riding on how successful Rising's return is. Is he going to be the same as he was before he left? A lot of times these quarterbacks, especially with that injury, they're never the same, can't move as good. And we're just assuming he's going to pick up where he left off. And that doesn't always happen. But just in my eyes, if offense is not a factor and they come in, he plays great, stays healthy, I do think they ultimately probably win the Big 12. Not to make this a prediction show, it is what it is. I think they've got the most talent in the Big 12. I think they've got the best defense. And just to segue into the portal, I don't hit it as heavy as y'all do. I just kind of read through some of the boards and what the fans say. And people are real big on Keenan Johnson coming in from Georgia Tech and Cameron Calhoun coming in from Michigan. Yeah. And I don't see anything on their roster that says that they're not going to have a successful season outside of how efficient Rising is.
Yeah, I'm with you. Since we're in the portal, let's hit it real quick because you mentioned two guys that are important cornerback play. Cam Calhoun was one that Michigan fans hated to lose. He depth guy, but he was promising. They got guys that they're excited about. Alford coming in from Syracuse. That's another wide receiver target. They're excited about his size. Dude's 6'6". But then you got Singer coming in from USC. Lions coming in from Washington. You're rating a former conference foe. So you're getting wide receivers to help out Cam Rising. You go out and you get tight ends and Carson Ryan from UCLA. You get Gilman coming in at safety from Stanford that they expect him to start, if not, produce right away. So you're getting guys that are plugging in. They're going to help this team out immediately. That, look, you lost 25 transfers, but a lot of these guys, I wouldn't call it a massive loss. Some of these guys, obviously my key outs, you got Jaquindon Jackson, Mikey Matthews, Nate Johnson, Malaska, guys like that. That hurts. Maybe not even just for what they did, but who they went to. So I think this team's going to be dangerous. Obviously, they're the 34th class in the portal, but this team's already loaded. It all, again, rides on how's Cam Rising. And that's the biggest question. I think everybody's got that question. Trevor, what do you think about this 2024 team? Defense, we know is going to be good. Offense, it's a rising show.
They filled their holes in the transfer portal. That was clear by their I feel like their lack of attention to the recruiting class. I mean, they got a couple 2 4-stars and the rest are 3 stars. It was the 40th ranked class. Obviously the transfer portal rank was higher than their regular commitments. They got a good offensive lineman out of the state of Utah, second best player in the state, offensive tackle Isaiah Garcia.
It's too much.
6'5", 280, and then So I think their recruiting class is good. Their transfer portal's better, and I think overall it'll be good for that. I think they're just reloaded a bit. It's Utah. I'm not really expecting, as long as Kyle Whittingham is there, I don't expect too much of a fall off from year over to year unless they're breaking in a new quarterback or, huge overturn at the offensive line, which did not happen this year. So I think that it's going to be more of the same that we saw last year. Maybe, more than likely a lot better quarterback play.
Yeah, and again, it's going to ride on how is his knee. He's had a whole year off. I mean, it should be fully healed, but it's, again, how do you play on it? We saw it with Blake Corum this year coming off a knee injury. In the early games, I feel like you could still feel like he was a little timid when he ran. He's obviously you just suffered an injury. You're concerned about that, but then as the season went along, he turned back into like 2022 Corum and got more confident in that knee. So I'm curious to see if something will, similar happen with Cam Rising. But again, offense, they return great tight end play. Michael Bernard at running back, great targets from the portal. O-line's going to be tough. Defense is solid. This is a dangerous team. Probably the best chance to win the conference, just when you look at the roster. But guys, anything else on this team before we move on?
Yeah, no, I'm ready to talk about their schedule because this is one of the reasons why I think they're the favorites.
Yeah. So let's hit it, boys. Schedule wise, easily, Southern Utah. That's a cakewalk. Let's talk about the rest, gents. What you got?
Yeah, I mean, they have their hardest stretch back to back, in my opinion. They go to Oklahoma, they go to Stillwater, then they get to come back and take on Arizona, and then the rest of the schedule. Maybe like Blake mentioned before, Iowa State could be a little wrinkle in everybody's schedule this year, depending week to week. That's the one thing with Iowa State is they're just in their recent history has just been a lot of inconsistencies. So it'll be interesting to see. They get through Oklahoma State. I think I said Ohio State, but I think Oklahoma State and Arizona. And you guys can correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like they have a pretty good shot to, worst case scenario, lose 2 games, but still be in the Big 12 championship. But there's a real shot that they are maybe a 1 loss, maybe losing in Stillwater. But I still, like Blake has said, I have a lot of questions about Arizona, more so than confidence.
Yeah. I think if they can get past Oklahoma State, who I do like, and they will be a tough game. If they can get past that, I see them running the table unless those last 2 games back-to-back, Iowa State, and I still think UCF is a sneaky team. I still
They're
think
I still think they're going to be really good this year.
That's a trap game all day because they go on the road for that game. And they already claimed national championships and stuff down there.
Yeah.
So when you have phantom champions, don't mess with them.
Yep. I mean, but to your point, Blake, is that if they're like we'll say they're only a 1-loss team going into the UCF game, but they're mathematically already in the Big 12 championship, that could easily be considered a trap game as well by looking ahead at the championship game or who you're going to play. Yeah, or whatever the case.
Yep. Very well could be. I was going to say that right before the Big 12 championship, if you're already in it, you're mathematically in it. You still want to win because you're looking at seeding for the playoffs. So, I mean, this is not something you're going to take, lightly, but
right.
Hey, that's a trap game.
Absolutely.
I agree with you guys. The Oklahoma State game is going to be a tough one. I think that was circled as one of our biggest games this season. Just obviously for playoff predict or who's going to get to the playoffs, who's going to get to the Big 12 championship. But Arizona game, I still like what Arizona has. I think that's a dangerous team. Colorado, don't sleep on them. I know they've got issues, but they can trip you up. These are things that you cannot get in your own way. And then Iowa State, that's a team that's got talent everywhere. A lot of people returning. You can't take them lightly. Got to do it. At least it's in Utah. That does help. I think I mentioned it. Their over-under is 9.5. So, I mean, even if the Big 12 all beats themselves up, this should be one that comes out right towards the top of the conference. Anything else on this team, boys, before we move on to West Virginia?
Nope.
All right, let's hit West Virginia. Look, last year when we talked about West Virginia, they got 9 wins, which is great. I'm not dogging on that. But you look at who they lost to, and it was pretty much everybody that was good on the schedule. So that's something that you're like, okay, yeah, they had a solid season, but they got to get over the hump of, losing to the best teams. So they go out this year, and they're trying to prove themselves and say, hey, this is our head coach. This is our team. And they had a solid portal class. Trevor, any other changes they made before we talk about that?
They had a few changes, nothing spectacular or something to write home about. However, there was a couple departures, but they're just mostly position coaches. Nothing's that I would necessarily say is jaw dropping, but they did bring in Victor Cabral. Sorry, these names, I love it. This is awesome. He joins the West Virginia coaching staff as the new outside linebackers coach. They brought in two new analysts, but that's about it as far as the changes go for West Virginia. So it's pretty much we'll see what happens. I mean, they had two coaches leave, but it was a safeties coach and an offensive coach. He held different roles at different positions, but he took a offensive coordinator job at Troy. So that's what he left behind. So that's about it.
All right, cool. Look, they had a good season, and like I said, keeping a lot of people that you feel like you had a really good season, you're building something. I can understand that. Last season they had the 27th ranked offense, the 66th ranked defense. It's right in that mid range. It's not bad. There's obviously room for improvement, but they returned 68% of their production, and they have an over under of 6.5. So there's some Vegas odds that are like, okay, we like them, but we don't like them enough to say they're Utah level, they're Oklahoma State level. But let's look at this portal before we get anything else. Blake, I know you got your thoughts, but this is a solid portal class. It's not great, it's nothing flashy again, but you're going out, you're getting Jaden Bray from Oklahoma State. You're getting guys like T.J. Jackson on the D line coming in from Troy. Don't overlook guys like that. You got a pair coming in from Northwestern and Hollis Jr. and Joseph. So, I mean, you're getting guys from Mississippi State. There's people that they like in this class. And honestly, they didn't lose too much outside of, their D line, I think was the biggest hit. And that's something that you really got to, hope doesn't ruin your season too much. But I don't know, guys, what do you think about this portal? And then maybe thoughts on the 2024 team in general.
So on the portal, I think adding Jaden Bray from Oklahoma State is really going to help the offense. But going back to what you was talking about the their losses last year being to the biggest teams. So when I was getting the notes for this, I started jaw dropping because it said their offensive line was rated as the number one offensive line last season, only allowed 10 sacks. They were third in the nation on the ground, and they were top 5 in time of possession. So I'm like, well, dang, they were better than I thought offensively. But then when you look at when it mattered, they did not do those things in those games. So that's where stats don't lie. Sometimes stats can misconstrue a little bit, Ed. But one guy I'm looking forward to seeing play is CJ Donaldson. I don't know if y'all seen the sheer size of this guy, 6'2", 240-pound running back. Absolute monster.
Yeah.
I think he's going to be huge to helping Garrett Green. And I like what's on paper for West Virginia. I just need to see the efficiency out of them, and I need to see them do the things in the big games when it matters, when it's on the line. And that's why Vegas is putting them at the 6.5, because they just haven't done that, and it's hard to have faith in it when it's yet to happen. So this is their chance to show it.
Yeah, right. I mean, that running back sounds like the second coming of Marshawn Lynch, just plowing through people or something, like or a Marshawn Lynch-esque player. Where West Virginia is more known for the flashy running backs, I guess is the word I'd use. Or the flashy wide receivers, the Tavon Austins of the world, or so on and so forth. But that being said, I feel like that overall West Virginia's transfer portal class does exactly what they needed to do, and that's plug places, fill holes, maybe get a couple starters in there, at least rotational pieces, and just keep on trucking with what they were building last year. And also on that note, I mean, they do have the 61st recruiting class, 49th in the transfer portal. I mean, it's for West Virginia, I guess it's okay. I'm sure that's not where they would prefer to be. They'd probably want a few extra 4-stars here and there, but they do bring a 4-star, 5'11", 160. Rick Darius Farmer and Kyle Altner. And Kyle Altner is offensive tackle, 6'3", 290, ninth best player in the state of Maryland. So I think that's a really good pickup for them. They do have another offensive tackle coming from Illinois, 6'7", 265, 12th best offensive tackle in the state of Illinois. I think overall, the recruiting class doesn't necessarily, for lack of a better term, blow me away. But that being said, whatever. I stopped myself.
It doesn't blow you away, buddy.
They're gonna blow you away. But anyway,
club me in the face.
Oh,
Me in the face.
Oh Lord!
yeah, might as
Don't
well.
get that. I hope that dude quits football. I can't deal with that.
Oh my God!
Oh,
Sorry
man.
to get you off track, Trevor, but
I got myself off track, guys. I got myself off track. But
That's
anyway, like I said, the recruiting class doesn't necessarily blow you away. But that being said, I feel like they picked up really good pieces. They got a couple decent running backs. They've got a few edge rushers, linebackers. They've got a plethora of wide receivers coming in. 1, 2, 3, 4 different wide receivers, a couple athletes. So I think overall they have a lot to be happy about with the recruiting class. They have a total of 23 new freshmen coming in on top of the transfer portal. So they have 23 enrollees already. All the ones that I'm referring to have already enrolled in the school at West Virginia. So they're there practicing with the team. So I think I'm looking for good things to happen. Obviously, like you guys said, the inconsistencies are hard to get around. So it is what it is at that point.
Yeah, and I'm gonna hit a couple things before we get into the schedule. The biggest thing again, Garrett Green. They love what he is and what he's doing. Even PFF backs up. They say he's one of the, I think, top 5 quarterbacks this year when it comes to their grades. I mean, this guy can run the ball. He can throw the ball. I mean, he had 16 passing touchdowns, 13 rushing, and he only had 4 turnovers. That is huge. So if this team is going to move, it moves on him being consistent with the full weight of the season on his shoulder. And I think they can do it. You have an experienced offensive line, like Blake alluded to. You got guys coming in from the portal to help out at wide receiver. And then you got, like you mentioned, one you got Jaheim White at running back. He had 842 yards. But then, like you mentioned, CJ Donaldson's a punisher, man. That dude's fucking huge. Excuse my language, but god dang, man. I mean, hey, listen, we are Great Iron Uncensored. We try to. It's a family show. But sometimes I just look at the numbers, and it's huge, But then again, Garrett Green, I think it's going to all lean on him. You got to see the pass percentage get better. It's in the 50s. Get that up into the 60 range, and this team's going to knock people off. It's probably could contend for the Big 12 championship. I think a lot of people are sleeping on them. But for me, again, it's get that completion percentage up, and also Neil Brown, show me, something more, because I'm not really a believer in the coach. I'm sorry to say it. I want to see more out of him. I mentioned it last year. Show me more. You're doing good things in the portal. People are believing. I just want to see it. That's all. But I think this is a dangerous team. Defense, you got to get a little bit better. I want to see better linebacker play. The depth is better from what Trevor mentioned, recruiting, and also some guys coming in through the portal. But yeah, that's my thoughts on this team. I think they're going to be good. Let's go look at that schedule, boys. And you guys want to run through that, and we'll see what we got.
Well, it gets real fast in week 1. So all of our questions should be answered on
immediately.
Yeah. Penn State, at Pittsburgh 2 weeks later, and then you got Kansas at home, at Okie Light. That's a tough first 5
4-game
games.
stretch, right? My God.
Yeah, I mean that's a tough way to start the season.
They have and again, we mentioned the over under 6.5. Look at their freaking schedule. Okay, this is not easy. We mentioned I think them as one of the when we talked about the hardest schedules in the country. Theirs jumped off the page as just outside of the top 10. Like they're one of these teams that that's tough. Like you mentioned, Penn State, Pitt's got a coach that's going to probably get fired. So I mean, they're throwing the everything at you. Kansas, Okie State, Iowa State, Kansas State, Arizona. I mean, that's a tough stretch, boys.
At least they get to avoid Utah.
Yeah.
See, look at Trevor hunting the good stuff, baby. That's it.
trying to, but other than that,
him.
but I mean, like real talk, guys, I feel like they'd be hard pressed to get 6 wins out of this schedule.
It's tough. I see them getting it, but I mean, you don't know. I do think they've got a lot more talent than a lot of these teams, like Pittsburgh, obviously. But that's a huge rivalry game, and it's on the road. And those Pittsburgh people, they're another breed. And then like Iowa State, tough game. Kansas State, tough game. Central Florida is not a cakewalk. And then finishing at Texas Tech. That's I mean, that's tough. That's a tough season.
Yeah, it's a tough one. And look, I mean, I think we're all in agreement that more than likely the Penn State game is going to be a loss. However, this guy will be rooting for them to just wipe them out right away.
I wouldn't count them out. I mean, they're at home for that game.
Yeah, they're in Morgantown, so I will not. I mean, it's not a game that Penn State should be able to walk on by.
Well, James Franklin is not known for winning the big ones either. So,
some certain people would probably argue that this isn't a big one, but I feel like this is a pretty big one for August 31st, in my opinion.
Imagine if West Virginia goes down and beats Penn State. What noise is going to be around in Penn State? What noise is going to surround that program?
Oh my gosh, Penn State!
I think James Franklin's on the hot seat.
He should be
the hot seat. Yeah,
he should be. In my opinion, he should already be on the hot seat, but that's neither here nor there.
I feel to me again, it's a Bo Pelini thing for him, but not to get off track too much. But I don't care for him in big games. They've got offensive issues, in my opinion. So I think this is a game that you can have West Virginia go in and upset them. I know Penn State's going to have a very good defense. Show us in week 1, Neil Brown, what this offense is made of. And, that'll change the tone for the rest of the season because it's tough, but you got a lot of talent on that team, especially offensively. I think they can make a run, get the over personally. I'm excited to see what they bring to the table. Gentlemen, anything else about them before we close out tonight?
Nope.
All right. So look, guys, we're done with the Big 12. We appreciate you listening. We're just trying to, we're learning the teams with you. We're doing all the research so you don't have to. So fans of these teams, let us know what you think. If we missed something, just let us know. And, maybe we'll change our minds. Maybe not. I don't know. But just comment on the YouTube. That would help us out a lot. Make sure you share, comment, all that other stuff. And we'll definitely appreciate you joining us, on these previews. SEC is next. So make sure you guys stay tuned for that. And gentlemen, let's sign out. Have a great night. And we look forward to seeing you around the SEC.
Take it easy, everybody. Happy 4th.
Yeah, hell yeah.